Hello, everyone. I'm Anjulika from Zubaan. Thank you for joining us on this Zubaan Nordisk panel as part of the Ananke LitFest 2026. This panel, which we are giving the title "The Peripheral Center: Voices from India's Northeast," will focus on Northeastern Indian writings and Zubaan's endeavor to highlight writers from the region. As you are aware, Zubaan is a feminist publishing house and NGO that chronicles and participates in women's movement in India and Southeast Asia. Uh, for more, please visit our websites, jubanprojects.org and jubanbooks.com. To give you a little reminder, the northeastern region of India generally refers to the 8 Indian states of Arunachal Pradesh, Assam, Manipur, Meghalaya, Mizoram, Nagaland, Sikkim, and Tripura, as well as the contiguous regions of Darjeeling, Kalimpong, and Kurseong. I would like to give a brief introduction of our wonderful panel here. We have Alyen Foning, who is an interdisciplinary artist, storyteller, educator, and independent researcher from Kalimpong. Rooted in Lepcha heritage and Samanic traditions, Alyen works across textiles, installation, ecology, feminine sacredness, and indigenous knowledge systems. Through art, design, teaching, writing, ritual, and community collaboration, she creates immersive experiences that honor ancestral memory, ecological stewardship, and the enduring relationship between people and place. We also have Diti here. Diti's pronouns are he and they. Diti is a queer transmasculine feminist researcher and writer from Assam. They have a disciplinary background in sociology and women's studies and over a decade of involvement in various movements across India. In their career in the development sector, Diti have served as a researcher, coordinator for a feminist network, and grant manager. Their scholarly and creative work explores themes of gender, sexuality, citizenship, militarization, nationalism, education, and folk culture. Diti has also received several prestigious fellowships, including the Amplifying Trans Advocacy Fellowship from the Asia Pacific Transgender Network and the Juban Sasakawa Peace Foundation Fellowship for Young Researchers. We also have Mona Chetri, who's joining us from Tasmania. Mona has received her PhD from SOAS, University of London, and has worked as a postdoctoral research fellowship in India, Denmark, and Australia. In 2023, she co-founded Reading Himalaya Research and Policy, which is a research consultancy focusing on the Eastern Himalaya. Mona is also the co-editor of Beneath Magnolia Skies, Writings from Sikkim and Darjeeling Hills, which was published by Zubaan in 2025. She has also published widely in the academic and public outlets on development, gender, ethnicity, and urbanization in the Eastern Himalaya. I'm Anjulika, Thingnam Anjulika Samom, joining you all from Manipur. I lead the Cultures of Peace project in Zubaan, which is collaboratively run with the Henrik Bol Stiftung, New Delhi. Welcome Alyen, Diti, and Mona to the panel today. The panel is titled and focuses on the northeastern region of India. So when we talk about the northeastern region of India, there are many things that come to our mind. One is the rich and varied cultures, the beautiful geography, traditional weaves, dances, songs, etc. The other image on the extreme end is that of a region neglected in the national discourse on many fronts, a region fraught with many forms of conflict. I want to ask all of you, what is your understanding of what Northeast India is? Who would like to start this? Diti, would you like to start with this?
I mean, Northeast is whatever you've said, and everything that we can and cannot imagine. I think for me, it is also like when when I was growing up, maybe like 15, 20 years back, when I had first moved to Delhi, people would say, "Oh, you're from the Northeast," and they had like this imagination of people eating um, all kinds of stuff that they thought were prohibitory. This could or may not be true. People used to ask questions like, "Oh, do you need a visa to go to the Northeast?" And the region, and there's so much misconception about the region. I think, and I think the reason I feel there is so much misconception about the Northeast is because you also I think the the mainland has sort of otherized the region in a way that, I mean, like, difference is part of every culture across, and like we say, India is a nation, not by default. It's just it is a nation that has been made. It was not a nation in that sense of the term. So we come from very, very heterogeneous cultures, but we did come together. So I mean, the fact that Northeast is different, and within Northeast there is a lot of difference, is not an accident, or it's not different from any other part of the world. But but I think we're also, there is this whole otherization which makes it like this, the creation of the Northeast in a certain stereotypical way. So either you have this one, or the imagination of the Northeastern women being super empowered, or like having access to uh, certain kinds of um, public spaces, which also may or may not be true depending upon your families, the community that you grow up with, the kind of privileges or disprivileges that you grow up with, right? However, yes, so however, the idea is that so I think also in the classroom we are taught about the Northeast as like, there'll be one, if you're doing sociology, for instance, there'll be one chapter on the Northeast which will be on matrilineal, and which is not practiced across the Northeast as well, but that becomes your benchmark of the Northeast.
Yeah.
For me, the Northeast is about this diversity. I think it is about the diversity, and it is also about uh, being part of a nation that was created as in a almost um, accidental way, uh, and it that is what Northeast is about for me. Sorry about the ramble.
Yeah, thank you, Diti. I think we are also encountering some sort of disturbance in the Zoom link from time to time. I hope the audience will bear with us. That comes with being like with the weather and also the connections that we are there. The Alyen, would you like to go next on what your understanding of Northeast India is?
I think, other than all that Diti shared, that we do see very predominantly, I look at the Northeast as, because my search is through nature. So it's mountains, it's rivers, it's streams, it's large rocks and sacred places, ancestors. And I feel Northeast to me is a place where nature and this old way of being, I wouldn't say is 100% followed and practiced as it used to, but I feel it's most alive in the Northeast. And I think for me, the Northeast, including my home, reminds me of our connection to nature, ancestors, and similarly moves on to the weaving and the stories and the food and the music. So I think for me, Northeast is something that reminds me of our connection to the old ways of being, in together with the new ways of being, but I still see it being practiced a lot more. So to me, I think Northeast reminds me more of this beautiful connection that we have to nature, to each other, and how we kind of have our ways of living that somewhere are always reflecting those concepts and those ideas and those connections.
Thank you, Alyen. That is so beautiful. Mona, you recently published your book, which you co-edited with Prabha Rai, Beneath Magnolia Skies, Writings from Sikkim and Dazzling Hind. This is the latest in the series of Zubaan anthologies of women's writing from Northeast India, which includes The Many That I Am, which we call the Nagaland book, Crafting the Word, which is the book from Manipur, which I edited, Riverside Stories from Assam, The Inheritance of Words from Arunachal Pradesh, We Came from Mist, Meghalaya, and The Keepers of Knowledge, Mizoram. I want to uh, connect this question with my first question of your idea of the Northeast. Like, how was your experience in bringing together this book, especially when it's sought to represent so many different voices from a region that many people in the rest of India do not know about? How are women's voices represented in this region, and how did you try to bring all the different voices together in this book?
Hi, everyone. Thank you, first and foremost, to the Ananke Festival for having this panel and giving us again another platform. Thank you to Zubaan and, of course, to my fellow panelists. It's really indeed very exciting to be here. And as Anjulika mentioned, we are a chatty bunch of women. So, it'll be fun to have this chat. Just going back to your earlier question around Northeast, the idea of Northeast itself is very difficult, right? I thank you for starting, Anjulika, with a very difficult question of what do I think of the Northeast, because it is, even from being from within the region, it is very difficult to say exactly what does it mean to us, because on the one hand, it's not a homogeneous space, because within the Northeast, there's so many different states, right? And every state is different. Every state, has its own culture, history, etc., etc. So even and Sikkim again is kind of an outlier. I'm from Sikkim, so we are considered like isn't it like the sun? Like if there's seven sisters of the Northeast, then Sikkim is the sun.
Sikkim is the brother.
Yeah, the brother, the pampered brother, right? So in that sense, again, like very difficult. It's a different way of looking at the space also. But I think for me, thinking about the Northeast, if I'm forced to think of it, I think of it as a space of contradiction. And this is something that I think the other two speakers have also mentioned in the beginning, as how it's a constantly evolving space, isn't it? It's one where there is, we go back to our roots, our ancestral heritage, all of that. But it's also a space that's also been seen as very modern, right? I remember how people from the Northeast were considered very fashionable when you go to other parts of India, right? Or our English was considered to be far more like nicer sounding, right, than compared to. So it's also always been a space of contradiction, right? And we, I suppose, took that sort of not knowing, not just by the rest of India, but also within ourselves, within our region. I feel I don't know a lot about Northeast myself. I can't even claim to know I know everything about the Northeast myself, right? And I think we took that sort of inspiration of not knowing within our own region and not knowing about each other, not knowing each other's stories. We took that as sort of a guiding point for our book, Beneath Magnolia Skies, which has got it's got a really nice cover. Alyen's also in the book there. She's contributed a lovely chapter there. So we took this not knowing about women from our region, their stories from our region, and not just for other people in India, but even within our own state, our own region. We didn't know exactly what women's lives and women's stories were like, because we have this imagination, right? Like, so India has an imagination of how Northeastern women are, but within the Northeast itself, we have stereotypes and imaginations of what women's lives are like. But do we actually know that? Right. And I think Zubaan has done a very good job with the other Northeastern books also. And so for us, it was a great platform to talk about what women's lives actually were and to hear it from their own perspective. And I think it goes back to what Diti was saying before about the stereotypes of women from Northeast being very free, very open, more freedoms, right? As if patriarchy here doesn't exist, right? So how does patriarchy then look in seemingly these very free spaces? I think that was our starting point for that. And I think that's what we have tried to do through our book. And I hope, I think we've done a good job. Don't you think, Alyen? Look at me just trying to get validation.
Yeah, I think that's like wonderful. Alyen, artworks is also a different story, like kind of storytelling on its own. And the Juban anthology is art narratives using different mediums. We have research work, we have fiction, poetry, photographs, artworks, etc. How does it feel to have art from the Northeast represented in these anthologies? And like, how does it feel to have your work represented in these anthologies?
So I would say my writing began with Zubaan, but it came with art. And I keep saying this, that Zubaan helped me open like a whole new portal, portal into like this small space and this place between art and research. So personally, I've been searching for the roots, my roots, and of my ancestors and of shamanism, and writing didn't come naturally to me, I feel, compared to art. But this space where art was alongside writing made it really easy to express and also reach out, especially to younger crowds of people, especially of the tribe. And through Zuban, I don't know where all it must have gone or it's still going. And I'm grateful to Zuban for this because they've always been so open about I don't know like the right words, this way of sharing and this way of documentation of indigenous wisdom, of women's voices, of the more than human world. And this openness of Zuban has helped a lot of us from the Northeast. And I can speak also just for Kalimpong also. I know a few, women who've been writing and doing photo essays. And so newer forms of storing and sharing knowledge has been opened by Zuban. And I think this is such a beautiful thing at times like these when people don't read as much too, So I feel it's been a very opening experience for a lot of us here because our voices anyway, because we're of internet, we do have access to sharing knowledge. But through this, someone who's been working in the field and has been around for so long, the way this information and this knowledge is transferred and stored and shared has grown massively. So I just feel very grateful that it's possible to have combinations like this and many more. So I feel specifically Zuban reaching out to women and other genders from the Northeast is something that they do very from their heart. And I feel that has opened up many doors for us in places where we never found opportunities to do that. So I'm grateful for that. It's been a huge, huge support, help, and connection.
Yeah, thank you for speaking so highly of Japan. But Japan's endeavor has always been to give some kind of platform for for marginalized people from periphery to have to be able to give their voice out. Uh, I will come back to Diti, but before that, I wanted to ask Mona, uh, in your book, which parents even when they have 10 children, they always are partial to one, sometimes a little bit. So in your book, Beneath Magnolia Skies, which which writing, which text like touched you the most? Which did you like the most?
Thank you, Anjulika. That is again another difficult question because, as you know yourself, it's very, it was all a labor of love, right? Labor of love. I emphasize on that also. It was difficult putting all of because our book, and I think again, like going back to Zubaan, the format, which accepts all kinds of writings, right? So that was like really great, which meant that we could have not just creative articles, but we had research, we had photo essays, we had all of these things. But if I'm to like just think, and it spoke to all different kinds of themes, and it was amazing that women had so many different stories to tell, but so many things, different things that we had not even anticipated, right? So I think one of the things that really came across was the theme of migration. across a lot of chapters was like, women having to migrate for love, for work, for family, whether they wanted to or not, So it was like the mobility was always a story. And I think one of the stories, and I'm not saying this because I'm a researcher myself, but also that really touched me was the story of these migrant women in Kalimpong. And this is a research essay, like a photo essay also, that's been done by Shivangi and Nangsel. They're both from Kalimpong, and these are like stories of migrant Tibetan women, but these are like the older generation of women. So these are elderly women, and their stories and memories, and it just shows, it's such a beautiful piece on not just migration, but also how memories, how they can also fail us, how as we get older, how we remember what we remember can also change, our stories change. But what I found that we really wanted to go ahead with this was also because I feel a lot of the time the older demographic of women tend to get like, not, I wouldn't say ignored, but they don't probably get as much space as we should probably be giving to their stories also. So for me, the story about Tibetan women who had migrated in the 50s in Kalimpong, and their photo essay, that was something that really spoke to me. And I feel that it was a space that this is a space that is there that should be filled in other ways also, talking about aging, talking about memory, how memory changes and all of these things. So yeah, that was one of my favorites. I really do like almost all the things we have in the collection. Thanks.
It's difficult really to choose one. I just wanted to I'll come back to you for to ask you if you want to read out a small excerpt from any of the texts that are there in the book. But before that, let me go to Diti. Diti, I want to you have been part of the larger Juban activities, at many points. You have been a researcher with the Juban Sasakawa Peace Foundation research fellowship. You are a mentor and facilitator for not just the research fellowship, but for other work. And you have also contributed to the Assamese anthology Riverside Stories. What has been your experience being part of this anthology? Do you feel that all voices and gender identities find equal representation in the literary discourse in Assam, not just in Assam, but in the Northeast?
I mean, of course, all voices do not find representation, and it is difficult to. I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, I feel no matter how much we try, um, every representation is almost nominal, because you can keep on adding and there will still be diversity, and the attempt is always to bring newer and diverse voices, right? So each voice could be a voice by themselves, because each voice is so unique. I feel Zubaan is doing a great job of bringing a diverse set of voices, and what was very interesting during the I think when we were discussing the initial about how should the Riverside Stories shape up, some of the conversations that we had was, who is the Assamese, what is the Assamese identity, because like this, I think this was in the couple like 4 years back, right? So which also meant that we were having so many more conversations, especially around because of NRC, etc. The identity, the Assamese identity was being questioned, contested in so many ways, and continues to be done so. And many of us who are migrants, who have migrated from the region, do we I mean, if you have never stayed in, if you are of Assamese parentage but you've never stayed in Assam, do you qualify to be Assamese? If you have moved away from Assam, do you qualify to be called an Assamese? If you are Marwari staying in Assam for the last 3 generations, are you still an Assamese? So who is this Assamese person that we are talking about? So that was, I think, one question that we had. So I think that we've had, Zubaan has managed to talk about the Punjabi, sorry, not the Punjabi, the Sikh in Assam, which is a very invisibilized identity. We've managed to talk about. The book manages it actually has a few trans people writing. So the other question that we had while having a conversation around the book was, is this women's writing from the Northeast? Because some of us do not identify as women. So we do how do we then place this within, within writings? So finally the book was called Riverside Stories, Writings from Assam, and not Women's Writings, because some of us were not comfortable with the women's identity. So there is another story by a trans man who about his experience of menstruation, because like the rite of passage around menstruation in Assam is very elaborate, and a lot of people, there are two sides of the narratives to it. On one hand, like people say, oh, it's celebration of womanhood, etc. But what does it then mean for a trans person who is having to go through, or like a gender non-conforming person who is coming to terms with this whole new idea of their body or their so I do think in this anthology there are various kinds of voices that has been represented, and of course, like there's so much more writing that comes out of Zubaan that does talk about other kinds of identities and other kinds of experiences. Is it enough? I don't think it is ever enough. I think there is always scope for more, and I'll always be hungry for more diverse writing. But I think we are on the right track.
That's quite good to hear. And I think the anthology Riverside Stories also gave more focus to new writers. They didn't go with like established writers. And that itself was a wonderful thing that Riverside Stories has done, giving a place, a platform for young writers, new writers, because after all, everyone has a story to tell. It's just that, like, there should be a listener who is willing to listen to you. And Alyen, do you think that some of the stories which are there in Beneath Magnolia Skies, and also in the other kind of writings from the Northeast, which you have read, Alyen, do you think that they are they are received well in the rest of India? And the question can go to what Diti and Mona as well, because when we talk about writings from the Northeast, they do not find a very good representation in the overall Indian writings, like whether it is Indian writings in English or in the local language or in translation. So much so that even though there is a recent move in many of the universities to open Northeast centers and to include Northeast writings from Northeast writings as part of the academic curriculum, they kind of tend to focus only on one or two writers from the Northeast, basically people who writes in English. So, which means that in a way there's a kind of double burden on the local writers. That one, they have to be on, like they have to write in such a way that they are recognized as part of Indian literary scene. Two, that they have to write in English to be understood. So do you feel that this burden is something that writers from the Northeast, researchers from the Northeast are struggling with? I'll start with Alyen, but Mona, Diti, please feel free to chip in, add on to what Alyen says.
So I can only speak from personal experience. Because I wasn't raised in my hometown and my first language has not always been my mother tongue, which is Lepcha. So for me, it definitely does not pose like a problem. But I know of many friends and people who write in our mother tongue and local languages, that there is definitely no platform to express in that language because the audience is very limited in that sense. So the translations that Zubaan has done has definitely helped bring that knowledge and those expressions forward in a very beautiful way. But then I really do think about something while you were speaking. Um, Again, because I don't necessarily come from a literature background and a writing background, my measurement of success is something very different. Um, I feel like through the anthology, in fact, recently, the one we did with Mona and Prava ma'am, I had people message me on Instagram saying that they really could connect and relate, and speaking about there's a part about mental health, and that, you know, they find hope and they feel stronger reading things like that, or they're reminded of nature, of the struggles of their mothers, of the struggles of their men, you know, and of the struggles of the rivers. And so for me, I think the success comes when, and these are people not from the region, the ones who've written to me, they've been from all around. So we have a common humanness and a common thread that connects us. And I think being able to share it, and for me, it's like my job is to do this with my full heart, and then it's for whoever it is to receive it. And I feel Zubaan has given us the platform, and these stories the platform to reach places we never thought it could. So definitely difficult for local languages and literature to come out, but there are translations, and that's a middle path, I feel. And for now, it is helping. So I feel success. I think we're doing good. You know, it's a beginning and we're moving. We're not stopping. We're walking. We'll keep walking.
Mona, would you like to add to this?
Alyen, so nice to know that people have been reaching out to you and saying nice things about our book. It always makes me happy to, firstly, that people are reading, right? The fact that people are reading books, like they have that kind of attention span to read a book. But that's really great. But I think just going back to what Alyen was saying was like, you know, for writing in local languages, the audience tends to be quite small, right? So that's like a big challenge that we're facing regionally. Because I mean, for myself, I can read, I speak Nepali, I read Nepali, but I'm terrible in terms of like, I'm very slow with Nepali. So, you know, so it doesn't become something that I automatically just like pick up and I start reading. You know, it doesn't come as easily to me. And I think that seems to be the sort of a trend that's going on. So I think for people writing in or literature from our region, I think that there are two problems, right? One is itself of, can we write in this language and will we be read even within our region? Forget about other parts of India, right? And then of course we have like lots of translation, especially from Darjeeling, the Gorkhaland movement. So we've had like lots of books that were published in Nepali that have been translated into English, and they have been like very well received within the larger Nepali or the hill region sort of crowd, right? That leads to another problem of other languages from the region, right? So for us, for instance, we wanted to be as representative as possible of not just the different ethnic groups, but of also the different language groups, right? So we set out, like, you know, we tried to publicize, we were like used all our networks to try and get writings in different languages. And well, we got a few here and there, but mostly it wasn't forthcoming. And when I asked my network, my contacts as to why that was happening, it was also because for a lot of these groups, because most of the languages were like just oral, right? They didn't actually have a script as such. So they didn't have these whole novels or story writing or these sorts of histories, right? That they can like easily be translated into another language. So there's that sort of like regional problem also. But I think you're right, Anjulika, when you say that within the larger Indian context, only certain few readers probably get read. And then that probably leads to another problem that we've started this talk with, of stereotypes of the region, right? Or like reinforcement of certain ideas of people, of the land, of the politics, of the history of the region. So that is really problematic. But having said that, I think whatever is being published in the English language, whether it's by Zubaan. And I think with what Zubaan has been doing, it has also encouraged a lot of publishers, local publishers in the region, local writers to write, to publish across different platforms, right? So suddenly it's become possible to write and to publish, to be hopeful about writing and publishing, right? And I think that's been like the really great thing that we've been seeing the last 10 years is suddenly this profusion of writing that's come out from the Northeast. And yes, it may not be taught in universities, but I think through other media, it is being circulated and it is being well received, I feel. But I think we do have a long way to go in terms of actually translation of different languages from the region. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Diti, would you like to add anything to what Alyen and Mona has said?
Yeah, I mean, completely resonate about local languages and translation and the challenges of translation. But you know what I also think is important is, for example, in the Assamese anthology, there is like there are a lot of there's this, for example, embroidery that has been published. So that sort of transcends this need to of language and re-looks at literature very differently from like the writing style. Like what we were talking about, um, creation of knowledge in so many different ways. So there are actually quite it, of course, it is heavily written, but there are actually like quite a few pieces which are uh, comics, which are paintings, which are embroidery, which also then allows us to reimagine literature, allows us to reimagine language, allows us to transcend language almost in a certain way. And I think Zubaan is also expanding upon what literature means by providing spaces for non-written text to be part of its anthologies. And I think that then hopefully, like we will have, we now do have different kinds of knowledge being produced, but like, hopefully like this more publishers will also be like open to expanding the understanding of what literature means and then expanding upon like it. So hopefully like, more knowledge from the Northeast will go out in its in different forms to the rest of the world. Yeah.
Can
If
I
I
add something?
Sorry.
Yeah, please do.
No, I just wanted to add to what Diti was saying, more publishers and things, right? It somehow feels like this is like the age of Northeast in a sense, right? Slightly belated, but where we've gone from of course, racialization still exists, exoticization still exists, right? But there's also seems to be a different kind of curiosity towards the region, right? Like maybe because there are more people, maybe because of social media, but it seems to be like the age of Northeast in a sense where suddenly like everybody seems to be interested in these things, right? So I think maybe this is also a time to like, I wouldn't say cash in on, but I think maybe this might be the time to push the work, the region, and the politics of the region also, right? But yeah, having said that, we still continue to be otherized and exoticized, so but I think this is a time where we can also like push our work further to other parts of India.
Yeah. Alyen, you wanted to add
Yeah.
something?
So what Mona was saying about the oral stories and histories, no? So there's like a beautiful movement happening now, at least I know with the Lepchas, but also other tribes, that a lot of young ones are now documenting, creating stories, kind of rebuilding some of the broken old, creating new ones, documenting it in so many different forms. So this movement, let's call it a movement, has begun. There's writings, there's music, there's dance, there's performance, there's art, and various other new kinds of ways of remembering, actually. So I'm happy to say that it's been going on and I've seen it grow. So we're figuring like ways.
And I think the most importantly, we're figuring it out on our own terms, I feel. you know. We are saying this is what is important to us and what not is exciting for you, right? This, and I find these young people, especially in Sikkim, I mean, Sikkim, but mostly Darjeeling, Kalimpong, they're like really, really creative. And maybe it's just age, you know, getting old. I feel as young people, they're hopeful, you know, that they will do something, that things will probably change. But yeah, I completely agree with you, Alan. It really gives us hope. And it is about really reclaiming ourselves, our spaces, our cultures, you know, and making something that works for everybody. Reclaiming not in the sense that it only works for me or my ethnic group, but something that works for everybody, you know. And that's a really great thing that's going on in the region. But I just had a quick question, if I may, Anjulika. I know you're moderating, but I had a question for Diti. You were talking about the sort of non-gender conforming stories in your Assam book. So I just had two questions. Like one, because we were also trying to include as many stories as we could, writings from across the spectrum, but we were just not very successful in getting it. So is there a network of writers who do that? So that's the thing is, first question is like, how did you manage to get all these questions, these stories together? And the second is, how was this received? How are these stories received by others? You know, like, was there some sort of pushback? Like, this is not our culture, you know, this is not, or like, you know, or maybe it was like embraced. I'm just very curious.
Again, so like probably the editor of the book would be a better person to but we do have a few writers from both I mean writers, but also first like I would still consider them. I would consider them writers because they have written wonderful pieces. So we did. I think we have at least three pieces from gender non-conforming, like trans-identified folks. One of them is myself. The other then Zubaan has actually through the Zubaan Sasakawa Fellowship has also been able to identify a couple of other queer, gender non-conforming folks, I think, from the Northeast, but especially from Assam. We do have a little bit of a collectivization for the last decade or more, which means that we do have people across age groups and people across gender identities coming together. Thankfully, because we have a fairly vibrant queer movement in Assam now, which is why it is, I think, to be able to identify people from I think Assam for the to write for the anthology was not too difficult. Very interestingly, we recently had another queer anthology from Assam, which was a small publication, but which means that there is a lot more writing, queer writing from the Northeast. We've had historically queer writers from the Northeast who've written about like about queerness within the Assamese context to a certain extent. So I think it has been, and now we do have music videos, we do have films. So we do have a few very nice films actually that have come out. One is called Fireflies, which was about a trans woman from a young trans woman growing up in a village in Assam. Then so there are a few documentaries, there are a few short feature films, etc. So we did have that. I think I I I mean, there are obviously two sides to the story. There are people, I mean, there are haters, of course, there will be haters. But I do think that there are a few actually very mainstream Northeastern, musicians, who have also, say, featured very, very beautifully created trans characters in their music videos, for instance. So I think there
I think Diti is encountering some technical problems. But this is a very nice discussion which is going on, and I was reminded of my on anthology, Crafting the Word. So for me, Mona, Alyen, and Diti, like what we did with the writings from Manipur, we collaborated with a women's literary organization, which is a group of women writers. Uh, and I was surprised because there were so many women writers from Manipur who were publishing on their own. There are no publishing houses here, but they were spending their own hard-earned money publishing books, and many of them had so many books. But they never had a chance, to be featured in an anthology or in elsewhere have their translation published. So our focus was mostly on these women. We also included a few young writers who were writing both in Manipuri as well as in English. But the problem that we faced in Manipur was in trying to represent all the ethnic identities. Because some of the other ethnic identities we were writing in English, but they were not writing in their own language. And our focus was like people who were writing in their own language. And there were many other identities, group communities who were from where there were a few male writers, but there were no women writers. So we had challenges like that. But when it comes to queer representation, it was almost nil. And in trying to find stories where there were the themes were of queerness, of gender non-conforming identities, we managed to find only one writer who had sort of touched upon it, but they were not very it was a story of a trans masculine person and their partner, but it had that traditional ending where they commit suicide. So that's a very traditional ending, which is given to many of the mainstream Bollywood movies also, where they try to broach upon topics like this, but then give it a very conventional, traditional ending, as those who say that the society is not, ready to accept that kind of relationship. But I was reminded when Diti talked about films, because from Manipur there has been a lot of films, especially on trans identities, and which has won many awards. So those things have been there, but we lost you there for a while, Diti. The internet is fluctuating from my end also, because there's this. And can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was saying that because of the heavy rains. So I wanted to ask you all the kind of knowledge creation, I would call it a kind of knowledge creation that we are doing through our anthologies, through the books that Zubaan is producing. Do you think that this would help in creating some kind of mutual understanding between the region, the Northeast region, and the rest of the country, or even between the region itself? Because even though they have bracketed us all into one category, saying that, okay, you belong to the Northeast, we are so different from each, and within each of the state also, there's so many differences. And do you think that this kind of work and knowledge creation would help create some kind of understanding between the communities, across communities? Who wants to go?
Do you mean?
Okay, Diti.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
Mona. Yeah, Mona.
No, I just wanted to quickly comment on, not comment, but something that you said about women and publishing. Even when we were, so we have a lot of writers who were like writing in Nepali. And when we were actually doing their bio, we asked them to send us their bio, and they ended up sending us the whole CV. And as I was going through their CV, it just like these women had just published so many books.
Yeah.
There was like all this self-publishing that was going on, you know, and they were this part of this whole different universe. It almost felt like literary universe that was there. And because they were writing in Nepali, you know, they were not as well known, right, as other
Yeah.
writers from writing in English, right?
English.
It seems to be like that these two sort of worlds almost existing, you know, where these and not just women, but they're also like other writers who are like self-publishing, spending their own money to publish, you know. But it also made me wonder like who's consuming that literature, right? Or are people just writing for the heck of writing, or who's the audience there, right? So I think in that sense, the platform that we received has been really great because, as I mentioned before, something like this had never happened for us in the region, because I think maybe in other parts of Northeast it was different. Maybe there have been other anthologies before, but for us in the Sikkim Darjeeling region, this was the first to come out. So for in that sense, that was really sort of it was a wonderful opportunity for us. And as I said before, like, you know, it has led to like other people seeing that they can do this, right? That this is possible, that they can write and they can publish and they will be heard, you know, and all of that, right? So in that sense, can we create some sort of like understanding of the region? I think it's two layers, right? Like first is like, I think it's great that for someone like even for me, like I don't know so much about other northeastern states. I get to learn about it through these anthologies, so it's like a learning that happens. Rest of India, maybe, right? It all depends on whether they want to learn about the region and want to know more. So, and I mean, and I think that is happening, right? Because we look at the reviews that we got for our book. And most of the reviews are from like newspapers, journals that are India, like mainland India based. And it was like, you know, we were very lucky that it was like very well received. So in that sense, maybe these books, whether it's Zubaan books, whether it's other books that are coming out and are getting the publicity that that is possible, I think that is creating new knowledge, new ideas about the region. I feel I feel hopeful about that. But yeah, whether it's going to lead to anything, it all depends, right? It all depends on whether people read us, why they're reading us, and what they take home away from it. Yeah, but that's what I feel. But I think this is a good start. And I really want to follow Alyen's very positive, hopeful, look at things that, yeah, this is a very good start. I think this is, as I was saying before, it does feel like it is the age, the time for our region to like really step up and yeah, like and not be embarrassed about stepping in and taking that space. I think a lot of Northeastern people, I think we are like pretty shy in taking
Yeah.
space publicly and saying we did this is us, but maybe slowly we can try to be comfortable about taking up that space. I don't know. And I think literature, art, films, everything that Diti, I think you mentioned, this is very important in taking up that space. So the work that everyone is doing is fantastic and it's great.
Can I say something?
Yeah, Alyen. Yeah, please continue. And then
Yes.
yeah, I'm saying please continue.
So for the self-publishing people, because mom's kind of like that circle of people who buys those things, right? So it's mostly friends and family because it's in the local language, right? And my mom's fluent in reading, So they religiously new publications, they go buy it. So there is just some bits of the community that kind of go and definitely go buy it. Some random, here and there. But there is a small circle of people that regularly buy these things. As soon as it comes out, they go to support their copies for their friends and to send somewhere in, Delhi, Calcutta, some friend living away from home. So I would say what I've observed is that there is a small community of people that are definitely buying the self-published local language books. And as for the anthology, I don't know. I'm sounding like super hopeful because somewhere that gives strength also, you know. I see humanness when I read all of them. The struggles with oppression of all kinds is just a different context here. It's the same, you know, it's the same context, it's the same thing. The dams, the rivers is the same thing. The other genders and the way they're being treated is the same thing. So what I see when I see the other anthologies is like, yes, I know this. Like, you know, I've seen this. This happens here. And grandmothers and stories about them is the same for us. So I feel like I haven't read all the Northeast anthologies, but I feel that sense of it's the same humanness that is there. And there are some similarities, a lot more for us because we're from the Northeast, whether it's the food or some bits of the culture of treating elders or things like that. I see commonness. I see that when I see the anthologies, and I don't know, and that's what I feel. Even though, like, don't like to segregate, but like even the mainland people, there is a humanness which they connect to, and I think the stories are so beautiful that despite the context, the different environments we live in, we may manage to touch into those primal emotions and feelings and situations which has been repeating through centuries.
Yeah. Alyen, what you and Diti, you are going to publish, like your new books are going to be published very soon. How does it feel to have a book of your own being published under your name and not just as part of an anthology? Yeah, Alyen, you can go ahead, and Diti can also come in there.
I was pointing to Diti. I was like, Diti, start.
So the first time actually I was part of Zubaan. I mean, so actually, I've been like like you mentioned that I've been associated for Zubaan for quite some time now, and I've been doing things here and there with Zubaan. And so every time I meet Urvashi, I'd be like, like if I write my book, will you publish it? If I will you publish? So I think of course it. So when I did manage to I mean, it's a very tiny novella is what we call it got some of it got actually it's an extension of the story that is in Riverside Stories, and then under a fellowship, a different fellowship, I did end up making it into a writing few more stories, and then it now and then of course reached out to Urvashi, and Urvashi was did agree. So I don't know at when that will be out. So it probably that will take some time, but the hope. I mean, it does seem like a reality now that the contract has been signed. So I am very excited. Uh, I mean, of course, it feels like a great deal to be part of an anthology as well, because and it is always like a great. It I felt I think probably as excited when the essay came out on Zubaan's website of the Sasakawa Fellowship, and it's always I think also I feel very very safe to be published under the Zubaan platform, because it just I feel like even if the editorial processes when they give feedback, there is like a sense of trust, and there is so much care in the process that it doesn't like you may or may not agree with the with edits, etc., but you still feel like you feel heard, and you feel in the process. I feel so. I mean, for me, I think I just try. I think it's like Zubaan is today, I would say, like almost home, in the sense that it feels like a safe space to place my um, this book that I have written with them. So I mean, yay! I'm very very excited. what, what else?
Yeah, can you tell us briefly, like, what the novella is about? Like, 2-3
So
lines.
yeah, so it is about Tiposi. Tiposi is so the Riverside story is also based on this character, gender non-conforming young. At that point, the character was much younger. The character was about 8-9 years old. Now the character through the story, the through the novella, the character grows, and this is a 13-year-old Tiposi who is growing up in the middle of armed conflict, but also, like coming to terms with their gender expressions, how they feel different from their peers, or how they are seen as being different from their peers, and how they negotiate and navigate um, either the way they want to dress, or the fact that they want to play football, because of course football has to be there, and finding
Yeah,
friendships, and
yeah,
kinships.
that's so great. I'm looking forward to reading it so much now. Alyen, can you tell us like a little bit about your book, which is also coming out with Japan?
So since I've been searching for the knowledge of our ancestors, of nature within my tribe and other tribes, so me and my friend Bipasha Mazumdar, she wasn't a friend. She approached me through because she'd read my thing, my essay on Zubaan. So she contacted me saying, "Listen, I'm doing this research. Would you kind of like to collaborate?" And that kind of worked out. And Intac supported the research bit of it. We traveled continuously for an entire month and more, and we interviewed or met, let's not say interviewed, we met a lot of elders and shamans of a lot of tribes, the Kirati, the Rai, the Sunwar, and the Lepcha tribes, mostly to look for someone who's known as the Banjakri, which is like the forest shaman, a mystical, mythical character. And the journey begins in that way. But then we end up meeting a lot of other shamans and find out so much beautiful, beautiful knowledge, wisdom, and the reality of things in today's world, of practices vanishing, of apprentices not being there, but of the connection and of changes in nature and climate change. And it was a very I don't know, we cried like a lot through like the whole research and meeting of people, but they just shared so many beautiful things. So essentially the journey was about looking for the Banjakri, which is the kind of the forest and the mythical shaman or someone who's trained by them. I won't tell you like the details. There's like a fun thing in the end.
No problem, no problem.
But it just turned out to be so much knowledge and wisdom from these beautiful, wise and humble people. No segregation of tribe, no, just one common, how would you say, us humans living with nature and ancestors and the modern human world, and they shared knowledge so openly. I'm just amazed at all the things that they shared, half of which we're not allowed to share because it's always to be kept protected, but a lot has been shared. So this book is about that. And in terms of feeling and having like my own book, it's, I don't know, I still can't believe it. I think my mom's going to be very happy because in the middle she's like, "Hey, author, please write my messages for me." I think now she'll be very happy. But I'm definitely grateful.
That sounds wonderful. I'm sure all moms are like that. They are the first persons who are there to read your writings. And this has been a wonderful discussion, and I know that we can go on for another 2-3 hours also. But I would like to go back to Mona for the last bit of this panel. Mona, I think we will ask you to read out a little bit from the book, Beneath Magnolia Skies, something which really strikes you. So we'll give you time for that. So Mona,
Thank you. But I had a question for Alyen. Did you find the Banjakri? Or should I wait to read your book?
You should read it. It's around the end. It's
I really am looking forward after like listening to you, because when you said it's not about different ethnic groups, it was just about the humanness and the knowledge and the wisdom, right? And it is something I think in the Northeast we struggle a lot with ethnicity, different
yeah,
groups, cultures, different beliefs, and but to find that similarity, that oneness, I think that is, and this is what my struggle is, when I say I'm from Sikkim, I'm Sikkimese, I just mean in the whole sense of being Sikkim, not a particular ethnic group or whatever. And I feel in the Northeast we struggle a lot with that, our ethnic pride, culture, heritage, stories, whatever.
yeah,
I think in all of that we lose our oneness, what makes us human, what makes us, people from the region and generally in the world also, right? So I'm really looking forward to your book. And yeah, well, I'm sure you found the Banjakri. But again, thank you, Anjulika, for the opportunity to read something from the book. As I said, like, the book has uh, the lots of poems, stories, writings that I really enjoyed editing. But for today, I just wanted to read out something. It's a short poem by, I think, Ellen, you've worked with her, by this young Lepcha girl called Lung Ming. I hope I'm pronouncing her name. And the reason
my
is, sorry?
she's my niece.
Oh wow, small world, right?
yeah.
So the reason it's when Lumi sent her thing to us, she was 17 when she sent it to us, So it's like this really young person. And I don't say in the sense of like young lepcha person, but just a young person, right? And for such a young person to see the space that women occupy and the hypocrisy and the challenges that women have, right? Like even at such a young age, and to be able to then write that down, it really spoke to us, and I think it resonated with a lot of people also. And it's a very short poem, and it's called Sornura Parnu, which means basically to work and study, right? So, घरको काम गर्नु अन्त मजाले पढ्नु, which means do the household chores and then study well. I have grown up hearing these words passed down from my mother to my older sister and eventually to me and then my younger sisters. Growing up in the Eastern Himalayas, we are subjected to balance. Women are encouraged to study, but at the same time expected to perform the household chores, maintain balance. I have seen my aunts work diligently in their offices and then come back home, go straight to the terrace, feed our dogs, sweep our corridors, cook for themselves, look after us, and eventually rest, conserving the energy to do it all over again the next day. I remember one time my sister and I were woken up at midnight by a flashlight burning brightly, only to hear the mumbling sounds of my mother reading her gynecology books. She would cook for us in the morning, and after a tiresome college day, she would waste no time and cook dinner and then study the entire night to achieve her dreams. My mom handled everything perfectly. Now, to come to patriarchy, although it's prominent, I feel the men do support our women with education and side businesses. And even though brothers are preferred and loved by all, in the end, चिया बनाइदेन, please make tea, घरको काममा help गरिदिनुहोस् न, please help us with household chores. Women are needed. After all, घरको काम गर्नु, अन्त मजाले पढ्नु, अन्त आफ्नो पहिचान बनाउनु. Do the household chores and study well and make your name. Thanks. I thought this was really great, for such a young person to be able to experience, understand, and enunciate it in her own words and language. I thought that was really great. So yeah, so in our book, we're very proud that we have writers of all ages, backgrounds, all sorts of things, So it's not like this typical book that is probably like, people think might be, but it's just everything. So you can hate it, love it, like it, but we are quite happy with it. Yeah.
This is such a lovely poem, and I agree, resonates with a lot of us, also across all the regions,
Yeah.
not just the Northeast, across all regions. And I think we'll close the panel now, and I thank you, Alyen, Mona, and Diti, for being part of this wonderful discussion. Let's catch up outside of the panel also, and because we'll have lots to talk about. And thank you, Sabin from Ananke, for being here to help us, and thank you to Ananke for this wonderful opportunity to discuss about Northeastern writings and
And
the new
thanks to
voices.
you, Anjulika, for like being so gracious and so nice and so kind and like asking us the most difficult questions. Thank you so much. It was so
You.
wonderful.
I can
Thank
talk
you.
for 3 more hours.
Yeah, it's been such a pleasure to like listen to all of you, but you've also done such a beautiful job of weaving the conversation so well together. Thank you so much.
Thank you.